Well, welcome to Agathos Ministries for the equipping of the saints for the work of ministry. This is Pastor Scott Conway, and today we are talking about a bizarre idea: cursed by protection. Cursed by protection. And we're in Genesis. Genesis is the story of beginnings. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Genesis 1:1. That is a foundational verse for us. Just so happens it's the foundational verse of the Bible. God starts the whole Bible with a simple idea. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Genesis 1 tells the story of the creation of the world. Genesis 2 focuses on the creation of man. Genesis 3 tells the story of the fall. Genesis 4 focuses on Cain, and Genesis 5 is the genealogy from Adam to Noah. We are going to dwell in Genesis 4 today, starting with Genesis 4, right at the beginning, verses 1 and 2. Cain and Abel, the first murder. Now the man had relations with his wife Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain. And she said, I have gotten a man-child with the help of the Lord. Again she gave birth to his brother, Abel. And Abel was a keeper of flocks, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. Okay, what do we have so far? Adam and Eve are husband and wife. They've got 2 kids. One of the kids, as he's getting a little bit older, takes care of the animals. Another kid, as he gets older, takes care of growing stuff. Now, one of the things to keep in mind, the keeper of flocks. What flocks are being kept here? And the answer is, we actually don't know. But what we do know is that these are not food animals. These are not animals being raised to be eaten. How do we know that? Because that didn't start until Noah. Before Noah, before the flood, before mankind is reestablishing itself after the flood, all human beings were vegetarian. They might have had milk, we don't know. Probably not eggs, though. And so if flocks are being kept, that means the flocks are probably being kept, possibly for their milk, we don't know, more likely for their wool or some such. So it's probably doing something along the lines of raising sheep for the wool. That these animals are not being raised to be slaughtered for food. That begins later. Right now, everyone's vegan, at least vegetarian. Continuing on, Genesis 4, 3, and 5. So it came about in the course of time that Cain brought an offering to the Lord of the fruit of the ground. Okay, what's going on right there? So it came about in the course of time. What's that mean? Well, we get an idea a little bit later. Brought an offering to the Lord of the fruit of the ground. Abel, on his part, also brought of the firstlings of his flock. Firstlings of the flock. As opposed to an offering. And of their fat portions. Now, fat portions were considered the best parts. And the Lord had regard for Abel and for his offering. Because Abel is bringing the firstlings. Now, the fat portions doesn't still mean that he's slaughtering the animals. Here, look at this nice juicy steak, Lord. But he's bringing the best parts. But for Cain and his offering, he, the Lord, had no regard. Okay, well, whatever's going on here, we just got a clue here. God looks at what Cain's doing and goes, whatever. Looks at what Abel's doing and goes, Abel, good job. Nice going. So, of course, Cain wants to upgrade his offering, right? No! So Cain became very angry and his countenance fell. Oh, how sad, his countenance fell. Looking at Cain, go, Cain, what's going on? Is that your countenance there on the ground? Your countenance fell. So Cain's upset. Cain is not a happy camper. Now why is because Cain was bringing an offering of, whatever, whenever. whatever I feel like bringing to you, whenever I feel like bringing, in the course of time, the fruit of the ground, an offering. What? I brought you something. I'm not using this. I used all the part I wanted to use. You can have what's left over, God. Abel, on his part, Abel did more than that. So the whatever, whenever, you want an idea what that would be like today. It's making sure you paid all your bills and done all your fun stuff. Bought all your DVDs, bought all your CDs, been to the movies, been to the play, been to the park, bought anything and everything you wanted, anything and everything you were in the mood for, and if you get to the end of the month, hey, check that out. I didn't actually spend all my money. Hey, God, I have a couple of bucks. So it's if and only if there is something left over, you give it to God. Some people, possibly Cain included, get to the end of the month, have some left over, and well, I have more left over than I thought. Well, that's a little too much for God. I mean, God doesn't really need my money. I give him a couple of bucks anyway. That just means I can do more fun stuff next month. Abel has a different approach. Abel brought the first fruits. That would be the first, or the best. There's two ways of measuring first fruits. One way of measuring first fruits, which would be the obvious way, is it's the fruit that comes first. You give God the very beginning. The other way of measuring first fruits is when you rank them in order from the best to the worst. What is the best is considered the first fruits. This would be like prioritizing giving to God today and then living on what you have left. Just go, okay, God, here's your share. I'll figure out how to handle the rest. Cain way. If you do not have enough to give to God, you just skip God. You just skip him. You have a little bit, give a little bit. If you have a lot of bit, you give a little bit because that lot of bit's mine. That's the Cain way. The Abel way. If you do not have enough for yourself and God, you earn more for yourself because God is first in the budget. Now, right now we're having some pretty tough economic times, worldwide really. Do you think there's a lot of people that could not pay all of their bills if they just yanked 10% out of their budget? Yeah. What do? You're okay, God, I'd like to put you first in the budget, but if I put you first in the budget, I only have 90% to live on. I'm already not doing the fun stuff. I'm already minimizing how much I'm spending on the expenses. I'm trying to watch my bills. I'm trying to make every dollar count. Where am I going to come up with this other 10% so I can pay you first? Is that a legitimate question? Do you think God says, that's your problem. Give me my money. Give me my money. No, God doesn't do that. Now, there are a few ways of handling that. This isn't a lesson on stewardship, but there are a few ways to take care of that. One obvious way is you just keep a running account. How much do I owe God? That's one way to do it. Another way to do it, you can keep a running account. Say, okay, God, wow, I owe you $72,385 now. That's going to take me a while, Lord. Glad you don't charge interest. But another way you can do it is say, okay, Lord, got to the end of my month, I figured out that I owe you now $750. Well, I don't have $750, Lord, but you know what? I know how to do something that is worth $750. Can I do that for you? Can anyone do anything that's worth money? Even if it's not your profession. I mean, a simple thing. Yeah? Can I help clean up your church, Lord? Can I help take care of things? Can, I help burn CDs? Can I do something that is an investment of my time that utilizes resources I already have to make an offering to you? One of the things I commented to Joshua the other day was, I don't know how you found this iPod or this podcast place. I don't know how you do the uploads. I'm just glad it's getting done. Now, is that worth something? Is that a way of offering up first fruits to God? Say, okay, Lord, I may not be able to write you a check for what I probably owe you by now, but you know what? There are some things I can do. I can serve you with my time. I can serve you with my talents. I can bring to you something that is worth something. Because I can't give you money because I can't hardly pay my bills. I'm trying to figure out how I can eat on a little bit less money because I'm a little bit shy this month, like I was last month and like I was the month before. I'm wondering in another month if I'm going to be able to pay the rent. But this I can do for you. This is worth something. I owe you this much. I can do something that's worth that much. So, I don't want anybody feeling guilty that you're not getting to the end of your month with lots of money left over. I don't want anybody to feel guilty that you get to the end of your month and you're doing some accounting and you're realizing, if I have to tithe on every penny I've ever made in my entire life, man, do I owe God some bucks. I could never pay that much. Well, it's fine. You don't have to pay that much. Nobody should feel guilty for that. Offerings to God come in many, many forms. And if you're looking at it just in terms of value to God, doesn't even have to be direct service. Bring him a sacrifice of praise. He desires obedience rather than sacrifice. Be somebody who represents him well. Now, what do you think God would rather have? Suppose you're a millionaire. You made $1 million. You can cut a $100,000 check to the church. But you are such a mean, nasty, ornery person. The very definition of play, everyone has fun. You violate all the time. People don't like you, and all they know about God is you. They only have read the gospel according to you by watching your life. And because of you, a couple of dozen, maybe a couple of hundred, maybe a few thousand people have gotten further away from Christ rather than closer to Christ. You think God would rather have his $100,000, or do you think God would rather have no dollars but have you be such a person that people by the dozens, by the hundreds, by the thousands are drawn closer to Christ by your example? So you can consider the value that you bring to God. Continuing on. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry?" Okay, now first off, do you think God doesn't know why Cain's angry? Once again, he's doing the exact same thing he did in the garden. He's not coming for Adam. Adam, where are you? Man, I made man, and now he's gone. He knows where Adam is. He's waiting for Adam to respond. He's asking questions. Not because he needs the information. He's asking questions to see if we will answer him. So the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why has your countenance fallen?" Well, it doesn't record Cain's answer. I imagine Cain might have been moping. And God continues, "If you do well, will not your countenance be lifted up? If you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you. But you must master it." So, the very first lesson in self-esteem. God's doing a self-esteem class for Cain. God doesn't say, "Well, Cain, you just need to feel good about yourself. No matter what you do, no matter how well you do it, no matter what kind of person you are, no matter how you treat people, no matter what you bring to me, you just need to feel good about yourself." No! God says, "Okay, Cain, here's the deal. You're angry. Your countenance is fallen. Okay. Being angry is not fun. I understand that. It's okay. Your countenance is fallen. All right, you're sad. You're angry and you're upset. I get that part. But here's the deal. You want to know the secret to this? I can teach this to you in one line. If you do well, problem solved. If you do well, then you will be regarded as someone who is doing well. You're upset because you didn't do well, and Abel did do well, and you're mad at Abel because he did well, and you're upset because you didn't do well. Well, what if you do well? What if you do a good job? You do something that you can be proud of. You do your work in such a way that you can bring your work before me. and have it something you can be proud of to bring before me, and something I can look at and say, Cain, that's great. Will not your countenance be lifted up? Somewhere in here, we're really beginning to wonder, okay, what is this countenance thing? Why is it fallen, and how do you lift it up? But we all get the idea. And then God continues. And if you do not do well, just in case if you do well, hey, you're lifted up. But if you do not do well, now what's part of the implication here? If you continue to not do well, or you just don't do better. So if you do not do well, which is where he is right now, sin is crouching at the door. Well, that can't be good news. Sin is crouching at the door. Incidentally, just as a little aside, that is a tiny little hint here that they're already getting this whole figuring out dwellings thing sorted out. Sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you. But what does God tell Cain? But you must master it. You must be sin's master. You have to tell sin that sin does not get to be in control of you. You're the boss. You're the Lord. You're the master. You're going to be responsible. Or to use the vocabulary we use, God tell him, you will be knightly. You will be princely. You will show yourself a man. And you will be the Lord over sin. Sin will not ensnare you. That's your job. That's what I'm telling you to do. So, basic self-esteem lesson. Do well. Do a good job. Demonstrate good character. The baby card. Who's ever heard of the baby card? Playing the baby card. Playing the baby card is when someone who is not a baby pretends to be a baby in order to get his or her way. Now, usually what I tell people is, when a kid's 2 or 3 years old, they're not playing the baby card. They are a baby. By the time they're 4 or 5 years old, now they're playing the baby card. Now they're old enough to not be having tantrums. Now they're old enough to not be doing meltdowns. Now they should be learning. Now they should know better. By about the age of 3, long-term memory forms. So you're giving them a whole year to figure this out. And so it's time to teach them you don't play the baby card. Well, the more they get away with the baby card, then it's going to take control, and then they're going to turn 6, they're still going to play the baby card. They're going to turn 7 and still play the baby card. Who knows, they may even turn 10 and play the baby card. Now let me ask you a question. Have you ever seen a child who uses the baby card to get power ever looking like a happy and joyful child while he's having his meltdowns? While he's throwing his tantrums? While he's pitching a fit? Does he look like a happy child? No! His countenance has fallen. He needs to do well. He needs to demonstrate character. You get control of yourself and you do well. You be good. Be good and do good. The fundamental definition of agathos. Be good and do good. And your countenance will be lifted up. Now what about this, its desire is for you word? If you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you. But you must master it. The desire word here is the same word used in Genesis 3 that Eve's desire would be for Adam. It is only used this way, the way you see it right here. Destructive, dominating desire, consuming desire. Something that wants to take control of you to your hurt, to cause damage. That's what this word means. So when you see it in Adam and Eve, where God says, Eve, your desire will be for Adam. That's not the sweet, loving, oh, Adam, I just want to be with you. You're so sweet and lovable. I just want to hug you. No. I want to be the boss. I'm in charge. You can do what I'm telling you to do. That's what that kind of desire means. I'm going to be the boss. I am going to tell you how it's going to be. I don't care what you think. I don't care if you think it's good for you. You blew it. I'm in charge now. I get my way. That's what that kind of desire is. Sin wants to consume, destroy, dominate Cain. Now, a few more things to note here. Cain told Abel his brother, and it came about when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and killed him. Okay, that whole sin crouching at the door and his desires for you, that seemed to have gotten Cain. Doesn't look like Cain's mastered it. It says Cain told Abel his brother. Told Abel what? Probably told Abel God's little self-esteem seminar for him. He says, Abel, hey, I learned something from God. Want to hear this? If I do well, I'm going to be happier. I'm going to be able to look at myself in the reflection in the pond, or a mirror, if they've invented mirrors by then. I'm going to be able to look at my reflection and see someone that I'm proud of, that I like, that I think's doing a good job, that I can go before God, and God's going to be pleased with me. And God told me that if I don't do well, if I continue to misbehave, if I continue to have selfish, messed up priorities, then sin's crouching at the door, and its desires for me, it wants to control me, it wants to consume me, it wants to take over. And God says, I need to master it. I decided that sounds like it's too much trouble, so I'm going to kill you now. Then I'm going to be the only son, and then I will be the favorite son again. Whatever the motive was. Rather than Cain stepping up, and how easy would that have been? It's Cain and Abel. There's no Seth yet. You got Adam, Cain, Abel. You got 3 men. How many women do you have? We don't know. We know we have at least 2. We have Eve, and we have at least 1 other woman because Cain has a wife. We don't know if Abel has a wife at this point. But we have maybe as few as 5 people. Cain is a tiller of the ground. If he decides to bring the first fruits to God, you think there's enough fruits and veggies in the world to feed 5 people? Think Cain has the excuse, well, Lord, but if I bring you my first fruits, what are we going to eat? And God said, all of that. I mean, I may have booted you out of the garden, but hello? Cain had no excuse other than he would rather murder Abel, cause harm to his brother, to be a little bit more modern. He would rather knock somebody down than lift himself up. Now, do you think Cain could have just convinced Abel, hey, Abel, look, I've got an idea. Stop bringing the good stuff to God, and then by comparison, I won't be so bad. Abel probably wouldn't have gone for that. If he's one of those first fruits, the fat portions, the best of the best of the best goes to God. I know who God is. He made mom and dad. I like my mom and dad. I think God did a pretty good job. Instead, Cain kills him rather than be better. What does Cain have to do? Just go back to his fruits and veggies and pick out the best stuff and bring them over to God. God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Now, what was Eve's problem? When she got called on the carpet, she blamed the serpent. Blames the guilty party. What was Adam's problem? He blamed Eve. He blames the innocent party. And then he blames God. The first man would not take responsibility. The first man would not own up to what he did. Quite likely in the garden itself, the first man would not own up to Eve. That whole touching it part, that was me. I told you God said it, but God didn't really say that part. Could have owned up right then. When God showed up, Adam could have dropped on his face before God and said, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. But no. Adam's solution was to dodge responsibility. Adam's solution was, not my fault, Lord. Not my fault. It's her fault. Oh, wait. You gave it to me. It's your fault. You should be asking me for forgiveness, man. Why aren't you down on your knees before me, God? Anyone ever meet anyone who has that kind of attitude even today? Where it's God's problem. God should do it the way I say God should do it. Yeah, people still have that attitude. A lot of people have that attitude. The amazing thing is when people in the church have that attitude. But there are people in churches that have that attitude. There are pastors who have that attitude. Priests that have that attitude. Church board members that have that attitude. Pretty obviously a bunch of atheists and agnostics that have that attitude. But you'd expect it from them. They either don't believe in or don't like God. Or both. They don't believe he exists and they don't like the God as he is demonstrated by Christians. So here we have Cain. Where do you think Cain got this idea of dodging responsibility? Where do you think Cain got this idea that the solution is not to go before God and say, God, I'm sorry, that really was a pretty pathetic sacrifice. I really did just bring you whatever or whenever. And that's wrong. You're God. You deserve better than that. I should have done more for you. I should have shown some gratitude. These things only exist because you made them. They've only been here a few years. You made them. And I wasn't showing proper appreciation for you, Lord. I'm sorry. I'll do better next time. I'll be back tomorrow with the good stuff. How hard would that be? Well, I don't know. He is his father's son. Abel was also his father's son, but Abel got it. Now, here's one of the interesting things. Abel quite likely did what Dad taught him and did as Dad was probably doing by now. Adam probably learned his lesson by now. Cain copied the worst behavior of his father. The worst behavior of his father included taking stuff for granted, taking God for granted. Look at the way he behaves about the gift. When he first sees Eve, he's going, whoa, man. Read what he says. He's very impressed with Eve, but boy, the first time he's in trouble, he turns around and blames her. I can imagine God going, this is the same person, a bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. You were really impressed with her yesterday. Now today, she's your scapegoat? Okay, we haven't done a scapegoat thing, you don't know what I mean, but you're blaming her today? She's just an easy target for you? Your wife is not your lawful target, Adam. That's not why I made her. But he does that, takes her for granted. All of a sudden, she goes from being his greatest blessing to a convenient way to deflect responsibility. And now his oldest son, Cain, is deflecting responsibility. Somehow, it's not Cain's responsibility to be better. Somehow, Cain thinks he's going to solve his problem by killing his brother. Then he'll bring the best sacrifices to the Lord. Because Abel won't be there anymore. You can tell, you could explore that idea for a while, huh? Cain was the first murderer. That's a pretty serious crime. We open with the very first thing mankind does is break the one rule of all creation. There's only one rule. And then in the very next generation, we invent this brand new thing called murder. Cain invented murder. No human being had ever died. They had no idea what death would be like. Cain invents murder. Cain is responsible for the very first human life lost. We haven't even made it 130 years into creation. You know how we know? Because when Seth is born, it says that he is appointed as a replacement for Abel, whom Cain slew. And that happened 130 years into Adam's life. So we don't know how long it was before this happened, but figure 129 years tops. And man decides, you know what, we did this whole sin thing with eating fruit. How about we try murder? How about we kill One of the maybe 5 of us alive right now. Abel was the very first murder victim. I mean, he had no idea what was going on. Earth wasn't filled with violence yet. This was the beginning of it. This is the first violent act. Even though Abel was faithful to God, take note of this. Even though Abel was faithful to God, God did not protect him. God let Cain kill Abel. God's omniscient. He already knew. He's omnipresent. So he's aware, he's there. But more than that, God physically showed up with Cain and Abel. I mean, he would manifest as some kind of a being that could interact and talk with them in some kind of a meaningful way. Yet God did not do anything to physically stop Cain from killing Abel. Maybe as few as 5 human beings alive in the entire world. 20% of the population is about to get slaughtered. And yet God doesn't do anything about it. We have 6 billion people alive today. If 1.2 billion people were about to be killed and you knew it and you could stop it, wouldn't you do something? I'll take that as a yes. But God didn't. Well, why? Because God doesn't care? Of course God cares. So let's take a look at this in a little bit more detail and see, okay, God, what's the deal here? I want to know what the deal is. Remember that God deals with us living or dead. So Abel's dead. Does that mean that God's going, where'd Abel go? No more Abel. No. If Abel was murdered, God still has a relationship with Abel. Because God exists on both sides of life and death. And if Abel was murdered, Abel still has a relationship with God. Whether we are dead or alive does not adversely impact God's ability to connect with us, nor our ability to connect with God. In all probability, it probably freezes our relationship in a way. It may make our choice eternal. So if you die saying, God, I want nothing to do with you, God probably says, okay, well, I'm not going to force you into heaven. Heaven's my home. Heaven's relationship with me. You told me no. Okay, deal. If, on the other hand, you go, God, I want you, and you die craving God, God says, okay, deal. You want me, you've got me. Now, choice may be becoming eternal at the moment of death. So it doesn't really matter much in our relationship with God whether we're dead or alive, does it? When I die, I will stand before God in a much more powerful, tangible way than I ever can while I'm alive. I'm gone from here. I can't do things here. The people I leave behind here, if I've connected well with them, will miss me. They will be acutely aware of my absence. But God and I will be getting along fine. God and I will be getting along better than we get along here because I'll be able to see Him. I'll be able to talk to Him. I'll be able to interact with Him in a powerful way. So does God need to save my life for God to have a relationship with me? No. Did God need to save Abel's life in order to have a relationship with Abel? Now, we lose in Abel an entire bloodline. It's huge, the magnitude of what was lost when Abel was killed. 20% possibly of the entire human population of the world. 1/3 of all men. We got dad, we got brother. And Cain kills 1/2 of all other men on the planet. Now, this is how far God intervened. This is what God did to protect Abel. And this is as far as he went. God warned Cain where the path he had chosen was leading. God shows him, Cain, if you keep going this way, sin is crouching at the door. It wants to consume you and control you. But Cain, you must be stronger than that. You must be more than that. You must be more of a man than sin has power. Well, today, God does that through his word and his people. Cain ignored God's warning. Cain fell to temptation. Now, when we at Agathos talk about falling to temptation is not when you do it. Falling to temptation is when you would if you could. Falling to temptation means you have to hide from opportunity or you will do the act. If you must hide from opportunity because you know you would if you could, you have already fallen. You haven't done it, but you have succumbed to temptation. That means you know, okay, I've got to get a handle on this before I have opportunity because I have already fallen. All I need now is opportunity, and I will do the thing I am tempted to do because I would if I could, and so as soon as I can, I will. So you need to watch that. It can be big things like murder. We're going, okay, I just can't see this person because I'm going to kill him. I need to do this thing God told me to do to get my countenance lifted up. If I can get my countenance lifted up, I will be doing well. I'm going to feel a lot better than I won't want to kill my brother. And a lot of people with siblings right now possibly relating to this in certain moments. Parents relating to this, okay, I just can't see this kid right now because I'm going to kill him. I mean, they don't usually mean that literally, not usually. But in some very severe sense, they're going, oh, you know, the things I want to do are not good parenting. I better go hide in my room while I calm down before I do something to this child that's going to be irreversible. Because I want to. Yeah, it's a classic, I brought you into this world. Okay, I better go to my room before I finish that because I really want to. So if you know you've already fallen to the temptation, dodge the responsibility. If Cain's still angry at Abel, the solution here is, okay, Cain, you need to calm down. You need to go back to your orchards, pick the best of the orchards, take it to God, handle your situation, because you still want to kill Abel. Stay away from Abel till you mellow out a little bit. Cain ignored God's warning, fell to temptation, and then acted on that temptation. At Agathos, we distinguish between the fall and the act. You fall when you would if you could. Well, Cain could, so he did. He acted on that temptation. And the consequences of that choice were soon to follow. The Lord said to Cain, where is Abel, your brother? Once again. Is it because God doesn't know? No, again and again and again, God asks questions just to see if you're going to level with him. Will you take responsibility? Will you mention, well, of course, Cain's got this whole dodging responsibility thing down. It's not my fault. Just, I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? And then God follows up. What have you done? Again, is it because God doesn't know? No. How many chances does God give his people to answer a direct question? Just answer the question. Where is Abel, your brother? What have you done? God doesn't just throw a lightning bolt at him right away as soon as you do it wrong. God still gives Cain a chance to take responsibility. So where's your brother? Now what if Cain goes, I'm sorry, I killed this last minute, I don't know what happened. We never had death before. I didn't know that if I hit him in the head that many times with a rock, he was going to die. I was just being mean. I didn't mean to. Please, Lord, forgive me. Nope. Says, I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? God says, what have you done? At that moment, Cain could have intervened and said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Or maybe I'm sorry, I did mean to, but I'm really sorry I meant to. Please forgive me, help me, Lord. But no, the Lord has to continue. The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. Well, that's pretty poetic. I think Cain probably got the point. God continues to let Cain know, okay, Cain, first you're the one that blew it. Then you got mad because you blew it. And you're mad at Abel, who did well. So you're fighting with your brother because he did a good job and you did a bad job? And you're upset at me because I didn't approve of your bad job? And you still won't take responsibility. I came and I talked to you about this. I explained this to you. It's not like you didn't know. And then you murder your brother, and then you try to dodge responsibility. Like you think I don't know? I saw you. What have you done? You still don't want to take responsibility. Okay. Now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you cultivate the ground, it will no longer yield its strength to you. You will be a vagrant and a wanderer on the earth. And Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is too great to bear. What? Excuse me? Okay. When God declares a consequence of Cain's choice, Cain complains. Cain's a murderer. He murdered his brother, and he's griping about being banished. He killed his brother because he's angry that Abel did well and he did not. Then he tries to dodge with God. And when he's told he's being banished for murder, being banished for killing a third of the male population of the planet, banished for killing 20% of all humanity, Cain complains, oh no, don't ground me. Isn't that amazing? When you look at it, Cain is complaining about being banished when he murdered his brother. Oh, wait, but this is the same one who got mad at his brother because his brother did the right thing while he did the wrong thing, and the brother who did the wrong thing is mad at the brother who did the right thing. And when God goes and coaches the brother who did the wrong thing, he says, look, all you have to do is do well. Do a good job. Do the right thing. You'll feel better. Trust me, you'll feel better. And Cain decides, I've got a better idea. I'm going to murder Abel. Still doesn't take responsibility. And as soon as he's being said, okay, that's it. You can't play anymore. Leave. No, you can't take me out of the game. I like it here. My punishment is too great to bear. You go, Cain, 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 Cain. So far, the male population of the world's not doing so well, huh? Well, let us continue. So Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is too great to bear. Behold, you have driven me this day from the face of the ground, and from your face I will be hidden. Okay, now, who's been hiding from God here? He doesn't want to bring God the good sacrifices. He doesn't want to take responsibility. He doesn't ask God for forgiveness. He doesn't answer God's question, and he has the audacity to say, and from your face I will be hidden. Oh, now God matters to you. Now that you're losing something you wanted to keep, now suddenly God matters because you're going to lose something. So why do you think Cain is suddenly so concerned about, from your face I will be hidden? Anyone ever watch the phenomenon of the child who only is ever nice to parents when he or she wants something? Mommy, I love you. And you know in the next 60 seconds there is going to be, is it okay if I, please can I have a, but something's coming. I was listening to a speaker one time, and he said that he gave this impassioned sermon to this group of teenagers and preteens, middle school, high school age, about the importance that you need to appreciate your parents and lay that all in, and a lot of them were moved. And I watched one of these young ladies, a teenage young lady, maybe 14, 15 years old, went to her mother when her mother came in to pick her up and gave her mother a hug and said, "Mom, I love you." And Mom's response is, "What did you do now?" Now, on one hand, he's looking at that on one hand and saying, that's not the response she was hoping to get from her mother. But on the other hand, how did this daughter treat her mother so that her mother would automatically assume, if you're being nice to me, it means you're in trouble and you want me to help get you out of it? So there's two directions in that, huh? "Behold, you have driven me this day from the face of the ground, and from your face I will be hidden." As if that means much to Cain, right? He just demonstrated how much God means to him. "And I will be a vagrant and a wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." So the Lord said to him, "Therefore, whoever kills Cain, vengeance will be taken on him sevenfold." And the Lord appointed a sign for Cain, so that no one finding him would slay him. Is anybody doing that? Whoa, wait a second. The Lord appointed a sign for Cain, so no one who would find him would slay him? Isn't Cain like the killer here? Why is God protecting Cain? God appointed a sign for Cain to protect Cain. Cain had the direct protection of God himself. God protected the life of the murderer. God says, here's the deal. Here's your consequence. In 2 parts, Cain. We're going to punish you in 2 parts. Part number 1, you're out of here. Part number 2, I'm going to make sure nobody hurts you. That'll teach you a lesson. Now, don't you look at that and go, what? Whoa. What? God? He killed his brother. Why are you protecting him? It's pretty amazing, huh? Well, let's go on and try to figure out a little bit about what in the world is going on. Why is God protecting the murderer? After the murder of Abel, Cain was literally half of the male population of the world. So if Cain gets a death sentence, half the population of the world, we just lost half the bloodline of the world. But here's the other big thing. Who was he afraid of? Quote unquote, whoever finds me will kill me? Who is Cain talking about? Well, there's some theories. One is, maybe he didn't know there were no other people. He just didn't know that, you get booted out to the east. There's no more people out there. You're going to be by yourself. It's just you and your wife. Or it could be that some other beings were watching. Now, on a cosmic supernatural scale, though, do you imagine it's possible that there might have been some angels checking this out going, what is God doing here? Okay, let's see what's going on here. Okay, God makes this man creature. What's that all about? They had one rule. They ate the fruit. Okay, God, I have to tell you, you do good work in general. I'm not really sure what you're doing with this whole man thing. Because, he's smart. Named 40,000 animals, remembers the name of all of them, but he can't follow one rule? This is like your thing here? The angels popping in to watch, and okay, well, this giving birth thing, well, that's new. Haven't really seen that one before. Male and female coming together. Well, that's new too. More man things, more animal things. Well, that's an interesting way to do that, Lord. So it could have been angels popping by to see what's going on. Could have been. Or it could have been something as mundane as that Cain expected Mom and Dad aren't done having kids yet. They're still going to be having some more. And when some of my later brothers find out that I killed Abel, they're going to come get me. Dad might come get me. My game might be over real soon. So we don't know who exactly Cain expected was going to come get him, but he expected something was going to happen. Genesis 4:25-26. Adam had relations with his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth. For she said, God has appointed me another offspring in place of Abel, for Cain killed him. And the name Seth means appointed. The name Adam means man. To Seth, to him also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. Enosh means mortal. Then men began to call upon the name of the Lord. Okay, now what the heck is that about? Men began to call upon the name of the Lord? But wait, the Lord's hanging out with men. The Lord's popping in saying, hey Cain, hey Abel. Oh, what's that you got there? Oh, whatever, whenever. Well, that's interesting. Oh, Abel. Oh, nice. Nicely done. Wow. God's still showing up in person. So what is this Enosh, men began to call upon the name of the Lord thing about? Well, let's take a look at that then. But Adam and Eve have Seth. There's nothing about protecting Adam, Eve, or Seth. We know that Cain was specifically protected by God. So far, no protection was offered to Adam or Eve or to Seth. So we'll get back to that shortly, because we want to know what is going on with this calling upon the name of the Lord thing. The phrase began to call upon contains a vocabulary very different than it reads in most English translations. First, it's an odd thing to say, considering God himself is still coming to visit, even in the days of Cain and Abel. But, second, it reads Shalal Kara. You go, oh, well, of course, Shalal Kara. Obviously, why do we translate that way? Everybody knows what Shalal Kara means. I didn't. So, Shalal is profane, defile, pollute, desecrate, or begin. So they decided to use, well, it could mean profane, or 2, defile, or 3, pollute, or 4, desecrate, defile, begin. We're going to use begin. Most English translations choose begin. Kara is to call or to proclaim, so it's not much of an issue with the kara part. Together, though, they are more likely to be saying profaned calling or crying out profaning. So when it says, then men began to call upon the name of the Lord, the then men began profanely proclaiming the name of the Lord. It was evidently around the birth of Seth's son that man's enmity against God began, which gets more relevant when you consider where things landed by Genesis 6:11. So about the time that Seth is having his first son, we know that the relationship between God and man is not going well. Now, Adam, Seth, and Enosh seem to be doing okay. They still seem to have a relationship with God, and as you get into the genealogy of Adam through Noah, it appears as though they have a very clear message that they understand. But the rest of this might have something to do with what's going on Cain's line, that there's profanity against God going on. There's taking the Lord's name in vain going on. There's disrespecting going on. So back to Cain and Adam. Cain was protected. Adam was left vulnerable. If God is loving, if God is just, what's God doing? Well, let's take a look and see what God could be doing here. Cain was cursed with protection. Just to make sure everyone has that correct. Cain was cursed with protection. Adam was blessed with vulnerability. Adam was blessed with vulnerability. How is protection a curse? How is vulnerability a blessing? Cain had no reason to figure anything out to protect himself since he was already safe. He had God's protection. What did he need to do? Nothing. Nobody was allowed to hurt Cain. Nobody could touch the man. You hurt Cain, vengeance would be taken upon you sevenfold. You killed Cain, I don't know how you get killed 7 times, but it was going to be bad. Adam had a threat out there. Adam and Eve had to figure out what to do to protect their next child. Now, Adam and Eve had first generation perfect brains, handmade by God himself. They were very likely never in all of creation more intelligent beings than Adam and Eve. Now, you hear numbers sometimes about how human beings use 10% of the brain. Some say as little as 3% of the brain. Adam and Eve probably used 100% of the brain, and their brains were better than our brains. Their brains could function at high capacity. If they lived in a sufficiently low entropy environment, their brains could fire off more than we could possibly imagine. In fact, were it not for the fact that the release of heat energy in our brain would boil our brain in our skull, which isn't a good thing for those who are wondering, the brain we have today is theoretically, mathematically capable of processing so many bits of information that you could process the total sum of all human knowledge, all human experience, of all 6 billion people alive today, and it would take your brain 1 second to process that data. 1 second. Now, the problem, of course, is that whole boiling the brain in your skull thing would take effect because of the level of entropy and the heat loss that would occur from that. Adam and Eve may not have had that limitation. So when Adam and Eve go to work to figure something out, they're probably going to do a pretty darn good job. If they set their minds to figure things out, as the most intelligent people ever trying to figure it out, they would probably figure it out, huh? And they had at least 1 whole generation head start on Cain's line. Now we find out in chapter 5 that Adam's line, his whole line, routinely lived to about 900 years old or older. The kid in the list, Mahalalel, dies at 895. Most of them are 900 years plus. Adam lives 930 years. Methuselah lives 969 years. We find out in chapter 6, verse 11, the earth also was corrupt before God. Now that might have started with that whole man began to profane the name of the Lord thing, huh? And the earth was filled with violence. Now how do you live for 900 years in a world filled with violence? Really, you only have 2 choices. If you were going to live for 900 years in a world filled with violence, either you get really good at hiding, or you get really good at fighting. Now Noah, whose name means comfort, was working on the ark for about 100 years. Well, it's a little hard to run with your ark. You're not going, oh boys, Cain's family's coming, grab the ark. Not going to happen. Can't hide. Ark's a little bit obvious. And even if you could manage to put the ark in a sufficiently isolated, hidden place so that nobody would know it was there, you're going to hide it for 100 years? And what are you going to do once animals start swarming to you, 2 by 2, 7 by 7 in some cases? Now how are you going to hide? So evidently, Adam's line really knew how to fight well. Adam's line really knew what they were doing. Cain's line couldn't do a thing. God did not protect Abel, and Abel died. God did not protect Adam, and Adam had to figure out how to protect himself. Abel might have had no clue. No one had ever done something like that before. Adam, until that moment, probably had no clue. Nothing like that had ever happened before. He might have no concept of this. Now Adam's got this idea. Violence. How are we going to stop the violence? Cain killed Abel, and he's out there having more children. He's out there building a huge population. What are we going to do if he comes here to kill us? If he comes here to kill Seth? If he comes here to kill our sons and our daughters and our grandsons and our granddaughters, what are we going to do? God's not protecting us. God's protecting him. God specifically protected Cain, leaving a threat to Adam, leaving a threat to Adam's line just out there. Nothing told Cain, you're not allowed to come try to kill your father. You're not allowed to come try to kill your brothers. None of that. Just Cain gets protected. He could come back anytime he wanted. He could have come back to kill Seth. He could have come back to kill his mom and his dad. Said, I'm going to be the first of men now. Could have done that. There's nothing to stop him. God didn't tell him, you're not allowed to touch your parents. You're not allowed to touch your brothers. God just said, okay, no one's allowed to touch you. You can go do what you want. You're safe. I'll protect you. God blessed Adam with vulnerability to a known problem. There's a threat out there. God knows it. Adam knows it. And God doesn't protect him. So that left Adam and Eve with the need to solve the problem themselves. Now we're beginning to get closer to something that sounds like a blessing. If they did not solve the problem, their line would probably not survive. God does this to make his people strong. God does this to make his people strong. Cain was protected. He had no problem to solve. His line stayed weak relative to Adam and Seth's line. You get in the whole Nephilim thing, you have this whole massive upgrade in violent power. And you still have Methuselah living for 969 years. So whatever this massive upgrade in violent power is on the side of evil, still can't take out the humans. Still can't take down Adam's line. They knew what they were doing. Here's a key point. Asking God to answer, Daddy, do my homework for me prayers is asking God to treat you like Cain. Asking God to answer, Daddy, take my test for me prayers is asking God to treat you like Cain. Asking God to solve your problem for you is asking God to make you weak. Asking God to do it for you. Asking God to let you be irresponsible. Asking God to let you demonstrate poor honor. All of that is asking God, will you treat me like the first murderer? Will you help me be weak? Will you help me be irresponsible? Will you help me get away with everything that I did that I shouldn't have done? Will you help me get away with not doing the things that are mine to do? Will you help me get away with that? By the way, is there a side that would be very interested in helping you get away with it? What's interesting is God will forgive you so you can pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and try again. The enemy will try to do the same thing for you so you can pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go do the bad thing again. God wants to empower you to get it right. Satan would love to empower you to do it wrong. So here's your core application. You pray like it's all up to God. You pray, 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 pray. You take your matters before God. But you work like it's all up to you. Because you know what? It might be. God might look at you and say, you know what? You are fully and completely capable of doing this without my help. And the more I help you, the weaker you'll be. In fact, you know what? This is a little too easy for you. Let's make it a little more interesting. Let's make it a little bit more challenging. Now you're sitting there bench pressing 65 pounds. What's that? You're not going to get strong bench pressing 65 pounds. You could do 250. Let's make it 250. That's how you're going to bench press 300 by this time next year. If I make it 250, keep bench pressing 65, by this time next year, you're not going to be able to do 250 anymore. If I let you bench press 65, by this time next year, you're only going to be able to do 180. Keep doing 65, eventually you'll never be able to do more than 65. Let's rack it up. Let's make it as hard as it deserves to be so you get better. Does that sound like a loving father? Let's help you be better. If it's your homework, do it. If it's your test, take it. If it's yours to do, do it. If you have a role to fulfill, fulfill it. Here's a brilliant insight gleaned from a brilliant woman. If you are a wife, God calls you to be a great wife. If you are a husband, God calls you to be a great husband. If you are a parent, God calls you to be a great parent. If you are a child, God calls you to be a great child on the path to being a great adult. Whatever role you are in that comes with responsibilities, God calls you to fulfill those responsibilities. You have the call of God on your life already. You do not need a bolt from heaven. The skies open, the light shines, the chorus of angels sings. Oh, guess what? I call you to be a good you. Be strong and courageous. God says, be strong and courageous. Opens Joshua with that. Be strong and courageous. How do you be strong? You be strong by doing hard stuff. Physically, you get strong by demanding difficult things from your body. If you can bench press 250, bench press 250. If you can do 2 miles in 20 minutes, do 2 miles in 20 minutes. Don't do 2 miles in 4 different strolls in 6 different days and say, I did 2 miles. Now, I can do 2 miles a lot faster than that. I just need a car. When it comes to running, you know, that's some work for me. But if I want to get stronger at it, do I take it easy or do I push it? And then you rest, recover, adapt, then you push it again. If I want to get stronger, I lift the weights. If I want to get better at my martial arts, I push my body. I push the insight. If I want to demonstrate I'm more of a man, I be responsible in times of adversity. If I want to prove the strength of my character, I face temptation head on and make my choice. Be strong. Do hard stuff. Be strong. And courageous. Courage. I feel fear. I'm going anyway. Fear is something's coming. I'm not ready. Be courageous is saying do scary stuff. Don't just do the stuff you know you can do. Don't play small, play big. Find out what you can do. If you play big enough, if you play to the limit of what you can do, then you expect God to show up. You want a miracle? You got a 200-point difficult item to do? You can handle 85 of those points if you push yourself to your limit. If you push yourself all the way to your limit, You find I might be able to learn the other 15 points. I just might be able to learn it, be more, be better, be stronger, be faster, gain insight and understanding. Push it to 100. I might be able to get help. I might be able to humble myself enough to admit I need help. I could get 50 more points of help. I can make it up to 150. And that's it. That's all I can do. Me, to my limit. Learning everything I can learn, thinking as much as I can think, being as creative as I can be, getting all the help I can get. I can make it to 150. Lord, it's a 200-point problem. And that's when you can expect God to show up and say, you did your part. I'll handle the last 50. I've got that part. I am not your partner of first resort to do things you're supposed to do. I am your partner of last resort when you have exhausted your strength and done everything that is in you to do. When you have proven yourself as strong as you can be, as wise as you can be, as smart as you can be, and you know humbly it's still not enough, that's when I'll show up. I won't let you be crushed. I won't leave you abandoned. I won't do your homework for you. I won't take your test for you. I want you to be strong. You're my child. I want you to be strong. I want you to be mature. I want you to be responsible. I want you to be a royal knight in service to your king. So I'm going to ask you to do everything that is in you to do. I'll handle the rest. You can't do everything. I can. I'll handle the rest. So do we want to be treated like Cain or do we want to be treated like Adam? Do we want to be strong or do we want to be weak? Do we want to be courageous or do we want to be scared? What do you think God wants for us? What do you think God wants for you? Father God, we praise you and we honor you and we glorify you. You are King of kings and Lord of lords, a master and maker. And we come before you, Lord, to kneel before you as royalty, as children of the King, adopted by you as true sons and daughters. And as knights, serving our King out of gratitude and joy for all you are and all you've done. Help us, Lord, praise you with how we seek strength. Praise you with how we seek courage. Praise you with how we seek character. We have learned in the fall and we have learned from Cain the danger of not taking responsibility. We have learned from Adam and we have learned from Cain the danger of blaming, the danger of passing the buck. And we can see, Lord, looking at them, how different all of human history could have been had they just taken responsibility. Had Adam stood up for his lady, had he spoken truth, had he come to you humbly. And for Cain, who you warned, help us, Lord, to be men, to be women, to be royals, to be knights, to be the men and the women you would have us be, strong and courageous, wise and insightful, of good character, Lord, that we may praise you with who we are, and that we may praise you with those behaviors that flow so wonderfully, so gloriously from who we are, that we might truly be good, and that flowing from that goodness that we are, we might do good. In Jesus' name.